So, Mario Odyssey. It's a pretty fantastic game, most would agree, and it does a million things well and another million little unexpected interesting things that are all well worth talking about. But something I haven't seen people talking much about in the months since its release is something I've spent a lot of time mulling over in my head. It's something weird and seemingly small, but I think it's pretty interesting when you stop and think about it. So, in Mario Odyssey, the game lets you take away Mario's iconic clothing and colours. You don't have to wear the red and blue, you can be a pirate, an astronaut, a tourist or a builder, a pervert, or even a double pervert. This may just seem cute at first, but I think it's actually pretty weird when you realise that this is one of the most recognisable mascots in the world. It's got me thinking about character design and iconography, and how strangely bold this decision actually was. Now, I know this is an odd topic to talk about, so I'm going to try and approach it in two steps. Firstly, how iconography and recognisability really is a big deal, and secondly, the specifics of Mario's design and how Nintendo avoided isolating the player in Odyssey. So, first up, let's talk iconography. There are a few fictional characters in the world that reach the level of universal awareness Mario does. Much like how you can show someone who never watches cartoons a picture of Mickey Mouse and expect them to immediately recognise who it is, you can show someone who never plays video games a picture of Mario and, chances are, they can do the same. That's incredibly powerful, and Nintendo knows it. They handle a character that is to video games what in many ways Mickey Mouse is to cartoons or Superman is to comic books. They are a medium-defining character. Mario's design, much like Mickey's, is simple. Disney even ensure that Mickey's design is so simple his head looks exactly the same no matter what angle you see him, so he, and by association, their brand in general, is instantly recognisable. Mario's design is similarly unflashy. Outside of a few choice words and exclamations here and there, Mario doesn't really say that much either. His character, and thus Nintendo's brand, is communicated non-verbally through design, costume, and body language. This is Nintendo. Or, more accurately, this is Nintendo. But it's still communicated just through this. So, how crazy is it that they let you strip him of all the things that have made him so iconic? And, more impressively, how is it possible they can do it and have him be still recognisably the same character? Think about if Disney released a Boba Fett movie where he never put on his costume. Think about a Halo game where Master Chief never dons the armour. They just wouldn't happen because those characters are inseparable from their appearance in the way I thought Mario was, but look, how is this thing still Mario? Nintendo has already seen what tampering with a character's design can do. During the reveal trailer for The Wind Waker, people reacted with stunned silence, and when the game released, a lot of people just couldn't accept the series' new look. Even though Link had only existed in 3 dimensions for 2 games at this point, some people absolutely hated the change in design and art style. They hated what it did to the character, and what it did to the world. The Wind Waker is remembered fondly today and, in my opinion, has more personality and actual character than both of the N64 games combined, but it had a serious uphill battle from day one, and there are people who still swear off it. Things like this still happen. Despite the game being fairly well received, there are those who are against the Devil May Cry reboot from the first trailer. People don't like saying goodbye to characters, and they especially don't like rebranding characters in a way they don't like, because it brings to light they might not be the target demographic anymore, which means they're getting old, which means they're going to die. Nintendo did the same thing earlier in 2017 with Link in the Breath of the Wild, but I don't really consider that the same thing. I know I was just talking about The Wind Waker, but bear with me. While it's true it's the first Zelda game that lets you customize Link quite so much, Link is a kind of transient protagonist anyway. His clothing is iconic, but by this point we all know every game has a different Link, sometimes profoundly different ones, and their respective art styles differentiate themselves enough. People have accepted Toony Link, Edgy Link, and Blocky Link by this point. Though it may sound like I'm going on about nothing, imagine if this didn't work. Imagine if every costume made it feel like you weren't playing as Mario, or if they were ugly to look at, or didn't gel well with the rest of the world. Sure, you don't have to use them, but it would cheapen the game. It would be a joke. By allowing players to mess around with Mario's look, Nintendo have actually put a huge amount of faith in the enduring legacy of the character. Mario doesn't need his look to be him, which is honestly an insane feat to accomplish after so many years of being a universally recognised character. So, how they do it? Well, let's talk about design. To start with, I want to unpack why Mario's design is so great to begin with. Every aspect of Mario's design expresses both his character and the character of the world around him. His lore. Mario is, above all else, designed to be fun. Everything about Mario's look is tailored to complement this feeling, and I think it's done in three ways. Firstly, in his aesthetic design. Secondly, in his animation design. And thirdly, though it doesn't relate to him as directly, in external design, or the world he's placed in matching and catering to his design. So, let's unpack it all. There's a popular theory in character design that characters can be boiled down to and viewed via their basic foundational shapes. Characters are very often squares, circles, or triangles, and though not a rule, each foundational shape says something different about the character. Round characters are friendly, warm, and fun. Square characters are stern, imposing, or slow, and triangular characters are often sneaky, villainous, or dynamic in general. Look at these three shapes, and try to project a face onto each of them. Now, maybe your faces didn't look quite as chicken scratch as mine, but I'd be willing to bet the same basic emotion was read on all of them. And this theory has its subtleties too. Spongebob is a square character, but his edges are actually quite soft and rounded, and the key features of his face, his eyes, nose, and cheeks, are also round and friendly looking. Pikachu is a friendly and kind of pudgy looking character, however, the zigzaggy spiky tail also hints that they're a bit more athletic and dynamic too. Not to get too sidetracked, but a lot of personality comes across in Pikachu's design. I've never really thought about it before, but it's pretty great. Anyway, let's apply this to our main man. Mario is a round character. His design is unthreatening and warm. Looking at a picture of him, knowing nothing, you may not assume he's the hero of the story, but you definitely wouldn't think he was the villain. This pervert, however, has a very triangular face and a pointy mustache, lots of hard lines. You'd never expect or want him to save a princess. Mario's key facial features are his eyes, nose, and mustache. All very circular, the eyes expressive, the nose goofy, and the mustache, again, very bouncy and round. Even when you can't see his mouth clearly, these features lead to it appearing as if he has a resting, happy expression. Not overjoyed, but friendly. There are, in fact, no real hard lines on his character at all, even in places where you think there might be. I find this kind of funny to think about actually when you consider Mario games are basically surrealistic parkour simulators, and the person you're playing as is the pudgiest, roundest mascot I can think of next to Kirby. One design tweak I enjoy is a bit hard to tell, but in the jump to the GameCube from 64 to Sunshine, Nintendo made the decision it was better to actually start modelling Mario's moustache rather than leaving it as a texture. My guess is to lend to that feeling of bounciness. Mario's animation complements his design perfectly. Everything Mario does in Odyssey conveys personality, more so even than scripted cutscenes. The way he stretches his arms out like a plane when he picks up speed, the way he pumps his fist into the air when he jumps. He's overflowing with energy, and his athletic feats are always done with a smile, like he's enjoying the momentum. You have fun, in part, because Mario is having fun. Look at how many frames of animation there are here. In a game like Mario Odyssey, when you press the jump button, you have to jump. There can't be a delay. Mario needs to jump and control perfectly, or the tasks the game asks of you are impossible, or, at the very least, unsatisfying. And yet, the animators and programmers were able to make Mario jump more or less the instant you press jump, allow you a degree of control over Mario in the air, and add character to that animation, in a matter of frames. I don't want to spend too long on this, but really consider what an incredible job the animators did here, that they're able to convey a character's personality by the way they duck and crawl of all things. Finally, the world. Much has been said about the uncanny new donk, but for the most part, Mario matches his surroundings. He only really stands out next to the people. In the world, he makes sense. This may be the city, but it's Mario's planet. Mario's design works so well because it A, speaks for itself. In a static image, you get all the key personality traits of the character, and B, is backed up in context through animation and world design. Something else that's important to keep in mind is that Mario was not designed today. If Nintendo were creating a new character, for instance, they wouldn't have to worry so much about, say, blending into the background or being indistinguishable from a series of other pixely characters. Mario's mustache and hat gave him a necessary injection of personality back in the day, and it's interesting to see how those elements have stuck around and been incorporated into his modern design tweaks. And while Mario's design hasn't changed too much over the years, his colour scheme has, or rather, once it became a valid option, they altered his colour scheme in-game to match that on promotional material. The red and blue is iconic now, and there isn't too much to say about it. They're bright, friendly colours that complement each other pretty well and help Mario stand out against his environment. Like I said, from the ground up, Mario is designed to be fun. Very wisely, Nintendo decided to make a mascot that was fun instead of cool. Fun doesn't have a sell-by date, whereas cool very much does. If you have a cool character, it's either a product of its time that doesn't survive, like Awesome Possum or Top Cat, or you have to go the Sonic route and have a constantly redefined, redesigned character that means totally different things to people who played the games just a few years apart. A character whose identity is so fractured and meaningless, the best way Sega can find to reconcile it is to split him into two characters. Seeing how meticulously designed and animated Mario is, how do these still work? Well, I think it comes down to the fact that they're congruous to everything mentioned earlier. None of them stray too far from Mario's bouncy design. They're bright and colourful, avoid hard lines, and they fit in with the world around them. Though they don't all have the iconic duochrome, they avoid overcomplicated colour schemes as much as possible. Interestingly, only a few of the costumes obfuscate his face, but in-game his face isn't as important as it is on promotional material anyway, as you're mostly going to be looking at his butt. Also of note, none of these costumes change his animation at all either. Not even his idle ones. This, I think, is a smart decision and goes a long way to keeping Mario's identity constant. The costumes are also, obviously, a choice. You can go through the whole game without ever putting one on, but they're made to feel like rewards and they keep you guessing on what's coming up next. They encourage you to go out of your way for that challengingly placed little coin, if you want to, of course. They're a neat way to add dynamic difficulty to the game. The costumes themselves also thematically tie in with what Odyssey is all about. Exploration. The game is a literal globe-trotting adventure and has you feeling equal parts like a treasure hunter and a tourist in all the different kingdoms. It makes way more sense to start changing costumes here than it would have in, say, Mario Sunshine, which takes place in a very limited number of select environments. Let's go back to everyone's favourite low-hanging fruit again. Sonic Forces is an excellent example of character customization done badly. I can create a character, decide their species, give them an obscene amount of clothing, change their eye colour, poses, etc., but they never look right. There's always something a bit dead-eyed about them, and the fact you can pile clothes on top of them just makes them stick out like a sore thumb in front of the other characters who have actually been, designed. They always look like this weird Frankensteinian mess that just doesn't belong there. Even if you don't accessorize them to hell, there's this strange stiffness and otherness to them. How is it possible that in a Sonic character creator, in a Sonic game, this is the closest to Sonic I can make? No doubt, as small and weird as the decision to dress Mario in other clothes was, it was probably a long and drawn-out conversation on the part of Nintendo. Its success has me examining other fictional figures in pop culture and thinking about why they've either survived or faded away. I'm curious to see if this decision is a one-game thing or if it becomes a tradition in and of itself. The new Mario Tennis game has characters donning an entire array of new outfits by default and it might be a tradition for Mario sports games from now on. Strange as it may seem to you or I, this wardrobe-changing Mario is the first time many young players will ever get to control the character. In 10 years' time, maybe the old red and blue will just be redundant. As long as Nintendo doesn't forget the key principle of fun, though, I think he'll survive just about anything. Hey there everybody, thank you for watching this video, and a great big thank you if you're one of the people that donated to my recent Kickstarter. Please let me know what you think are some great character designs in the comment section, or tell me why I'm wrong about Sonic the Hedgehog. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like, share and subscribe, all that good stuff. If you want to hear more of my opinions about video games, Sorry, this is my first video about them. Maybe you'll enjoy this video about a Cuban propaganda film? Anyway, see you guys again in a couple weeks.